planning a trip back to Pandora? Here's a look at the brand new McFarlane Toys Avatar Jake Sully. Born on Earth, Jake Sully is given a unique opportunity to join the Avatar program, in which humans remotely control human Na'vi hybrids to safely navigate the alien and dangerous moon of Pandora. After spending time with the Na'vi, Jake becomes fully immersed in their way of life, and he falls in love with the moon, the people, and its Na'vi guide, the teacher, Neytiri. Who's all ready for an alien encounter? Well, before we get a closer look at Avatar's Jake Sully, first I'd like to thank the folks over at McFarlane Toys that did provide this sample, as well as a bunch of other things that we're going to be looking at in upcoming videos promoting the brand new Avatar movie that's about to hit silver screens. Second thing we're going to do is grab the tape measure to see how tall Jake Sully stands. He's going to be a lot taller than some of the figures you're probably used to collecting in your lines. Jake Sully stands impressively at 7 inches exactly. I mean, 7 inches is right there. To flip that around, you're looking at the figure being, well, again, about 18 centimeters in height. It's highly, highly unlikely that the Na'vi people are going to be teaming up with the Cape Crusader, but again, you never know. Batman teams up with everybody. Here's, though, what Jake Sully looks like along with the DC Rebirth Batman. Noted, though, Batman isn't a very tall figure. In fact, he's one of the shorter Batman figures we've gotten from DC Multiverse, but it gives you at least a proper perspective of just how much taller Jake Sully is. Unlike Batman, though, and unlike the DC Multiverse line, Jake Sully and the rest of the Avatar figures, as far as I can see at least, don't come included with trading cards. So if anybody was looking forward to start collecting Avatar cards with their figures, it doesn't seem to be the case. In the meantime, though, Jake Sully does still come included with a very familiar-looking display stand. Maybe not necessarily familiar by the fact it has the Avatar logo here on the front, but if you happen to grab yourself a DC logo stand, just happen to have a faded one here off to the side, you can definitely see that they are using the exact same display stand, which is pretty consistent. McFarlane's team always uses these stands for whether it be this, the DC Multiverse, or even the Mortal Kombat line. Branded, down below, I almost dropped it, branded, down below, again, you got the Avatar logo, and then just off to the corner there, one singular peg that can attach to either one of Jake Sully's feet. Put the figure down here for 1 second. We'll bring back in the display stand, likely more for final looks than anything else. The figure comes included accessory-wise with a tiny little dagger. This tiny little knife, as you can see, is curved, but it's been molded nicely here in a gunmetal gray. The handle itself, kind of more of an ivory or beige color. Hoping the camera's not getting out of focus for that. There's a little bit of silver or a little bit of that gunmetal gray at the top there. Now, this can be held in either one of his hands. Technically, he does have better suited hands for the ones I've already yanked out of his forearms. What? What did you do? I actually yanked this hand out. I took this out just to replace it with this one because in the opener of the review, I actually had him carrying around his bow and arrow set. So actually, in actual fact, the defaulted hand is the best suited one for holding the knife. Fits perfectly in his hand. There is also technically a secondary place that this can be stored, provided I can get it out of his hands. If you look at the figure, right around this sash section here, there's actually a little holster that can wield the knife. You just slot it up. Now, what they've actually done is they've carved a little groove, a little indentation, or a little canal on the top of it. So the knife actually sits pretty good in it. If you, though, pull it out this way, obviously it's not going to sit the best. You can also insert it this way, too. But I always like, for knives, going the full work of sliding them in myself. And you actually can carry around the knife that way. So really, if you factor that in, and you factor in the bow and the arrow that we're about to have a look at, and you can include, really, the display stand, Jake Sully can really carry around everything that he comes included with, short of, again, like the swappable hands. Speaking of, though, of swappable hands, short of the one that we already had a look at that grips the knife, he also comes included with this one as well. Doesn't look like it's a weird looking hand. He's very arthritic looking hand. But this is actually really one that's good for holding, not necessarily the bow and the arrow, because the bow is actually already attached to the arrow. This looks like something that was intended for an arrow that was supposed to come included with the figure. And yet, nowhere on the tray is there an actual arrow itself. There's not even a compartment for it. So you could likely use this, I'm guessing, with an arrow that we're going to be getting with a future figure. For the time being, though, again, like it's not really going to be attaching around the bow and the arrow. The bow and the arrow are married together. There's no way to remove them. The arrow, as you can see, is just a continued mold of the bow, but there is at least a little bit of paint that they've added. It's a little messier here, but it's a nice dark, again, gray color that they've used for not only the tip of the arrow, but also the feather on the back there as well. This can, as it goes right now, because I've again taken the time of swapping the hands out, can actually fit in either one of his hands right now. Simply just slide this down. You can also really, again, pry the fingers away from the palm too, but this hand actually has just the right grip to hold the bow at least perfectly in his hand. You can also put it in this hand as well. This one is just a little bit more relaxed and it has the extended finger out. But yeah, Jake can perfectly hold the accessories. Ta-da. Taking that out of his hand, though, putting that to the side, we're going to come back to that. We're going to revisit that. And just in case I happen to lose the knife, let's put it over here. Keep it in safekeeping for right now. Getting, though, a closer look at Jake Sully. First of all, I was a big fan of the original Avatar movie. I think I may have saw it 3 times in the theater. It did actually pretty good for itself the first time it ran in theaters. I think actually, in fact, Cameron brought it back simply just so it could compete with the total tally that Avengers Endgame ended up getting. I don't remember whether if Avatar actually toppled Endgame or if Endgame ended up beating Avatar, but either way, Avatar did pretty good for itself. We had to wait quite a while, in fact, for a new Avatar movie to come out. How long has it really been? Some have said it's maybe too long. Maybe it's long overdue that we should have got an Avatar sequel a long time ago. But Cameron seems to be pushing the idea. I think he's already got plans for not only a second and a third Avatar, but he's also already planning an Avatar 5 to 7. So there's some big plans. Let's hope Cameron's still alive to produce those other... He'd have to pass on the torch to somebody else to continue on the rest of the Avatar movies. That is all, of course, whether the new Avatar movie will actually succeed in theaters. Time will tell. I gotta say, though, in good hands, this was given to the McFarlane team. The paint on this guy's fantastic. First of all, you have the plastic itself that has the striping that the Na'vi people would be known to have. We're going to be looking at a couple of these in upcoming reviews. The striping, I would imagine, is going to vary from different of the Na'vi people. Jake Sully's, as you can see, does have the striping there on the sides of his arm. He does have, of course, on the fronts, more so on the sides of his torso, if I can just move his arms out of the way here, kind of more to the sides. It doesn't look necessarily like they've painted it. Rather, they've actually printed it onto the plastic itself. There are a few little places that they have painted, like, for example, the little band that he has on his bicep. He's also got himself there a little wrap that he has around his forearm, and he also has a little band on the side that's been painted a lighter color brown. This part is actually a separate piece, although luckily it doesn't actually shift around too much. The sash is also something that's loose, but it looks like they've actually adhered it to the top of the shoulder, so it's not going to be going anywhere. But yeah, I'm really though happy with the head sculpt. The face, I think, has been captured nicely. The look of Jake Sully from the film. Even the smaller details like his eyes. It's not messy. The paint's been handled really well. Like the little lines of eyebrows that they've added in there as well. And of course, with the Na'vi people, the males at least have these long pigtails. I think they actually use them for a purpose in the movie, if memory serves me correctly. But it's long and soft, and it's made of plastic, a soft rubbery plastic. And it does actually have some real freedom to it, so it's not going to restrict the head, especially when it comes to the articulation. Lower down to the body, he does have the little loincloth here that drapes down to the front. It also doesn't drape necessarily around the back because it has to wrap around the back of his tail. The tail, I was happy to see, actually is on a ball joint, so you can move it back and forth. And like the braided hair, it does also have some softer plastic that you can bend the tail as well. One thing I did notice, though, about the tail is as you move it around, it seems to come pretty easily off the ball joint. I looked almost as if I just purposely yanked it off the ball. It was more just to prove a point that it does come off the ball joint pretty easy. It might even, in fact, do that the next time we're looking at the articulation of the figure. But again, I really like the basket woven texturing that they've added to like the little forearm area. He's got it around, again, that mid-torso, somewhat girdle that he wears as well. Again, like the colors on this guy's really good. Even the skirting here in the front has kind of a lighter aqua teal or aquamarine color, and there's some nice lighter colors that they've added in there as well. It's got a little bit of the color down below there as well. And of course, you've got the Na'vi people's feet. Very large, very agile, allowing them to spring up to the treetops and move across the limbs. Again, you already got the peg holes on the undersides of his feet, so if you want to get this guy in some more dynamic poses, at least they include a display stand. McFarlane's team is really good for including display stands. For the articulation here on Jake Sully, his head is on a ball joint. Now, we've already talked about the fact that his hair is a softer plastic, so it doesn't get in the way at all. The moment you think it's about to hit the shoulder and stop the head, it says, no way, all may pass. You can rotate the head all the way around with perfect freedom. You have the head looking down, hinging down, I should say at least. You can have the head hinging up, and there's really a lot of range in between. So if you really want to have those looks where he's kind of looking off to the moon, you can have him doing that as well. When we have a look in Atari too, we're going to have the two displayed. I'm going to have the two displayed on my shelf. For the shoulders, now the shoulders work essentially like the body itself works the same very much to what we looked at with the DC Multiverse figures. Short of maybe the fact that the figure does have a ball joint, but the ball joints obviously have a much more narrow waist. But like all the joint system works about the same. So he does have the socket joint on the inside of his shoulders. It allows the arms to kind of hinge in and out. He does have the arm elbow, or I should say shoulder joint that allows the arms to rotate all the way around. You can bring the arms out. They're a little tighter on my figure at least, but you can pull off a little tighter, a little cricky, little clicky, I should say, but you can actually pull it out at about a 90-degree angle bend. Again, you can take the arms and rotate them all the way around. He does have a swivel in the bicep. They've actually concealed it nicely just underneath the band. This one also concealed just underneath that blue band. The figure does have a double hinge in the elbow on both arms for obvious reasons. It's going to be symmetrical on both the sides. He does also have a swivel in the hand. You can rotate it all the way around, and you can hinge it back and forth. Upper torso is on a ball joint, a very generous ball joint. And then he has a secondary ball joint further down, just below the loincloth, and then hinges up and down, back and forth. The legs do split out and work the same way that there seems to be a ratcheted joint working behind the scenes. Very inappropriate area to be looking at. You can take the legs and move them forward. You can move them back. And like DC Multiverse figures, this part's softer down below, softer plastic, just to help conceal the joints and to make no restrictions, certainly when you're moving the legs back and forth. Finally, Jake Sully does have a double hinge on the knee. He does have articulation up and down on the feet. You can also move them back and forth, of course, as well. And there's some nice, decent toe articulation happening there as well. You know, honestly, I don't know whether Avatar is going to be licensed out to any other company, other than any other toy company other than McFarlane's team. I mean, obviously, they could probably put out like a retail, more kid-friendly, basic class of figures, but I feel as if they're probably going to be keeping the Avatar line solely with McFarlane's team. And, you know, I got to honestly say, like, the look of the figure, providing he actually doesn't fall over on me, the look of the figure looks fantastic. He almost looks as if, like, he's an import figure. And I don't mean that in a negative way at all. Import figures, of course, are the ones that you have to buy overseas. You order them online, you can be paying a lot more, over usually $100. They're super detailed figures, superposable. But I feel you're almost getting the same effect here with the McFarlane stuff. Looking at just only Jake Sully alone, and before we start looking at the rest of the toy lineup, really, really happy. And I'm glad to see that this line was handed over to McFarlane's team so they could produce a toy line leading up to the film's release. Here in Final Looks, I ended up using that swapped out hand to hold the knife for Jake Sully. And though I think the hand is actually designed to hold the knife, I think it was better suited instead to hold an arrow. Well, seeing as the arrow was already molded together with the bow as one piece, you can't remove them after all, I feel as if maybe that hand is going to be used for a future accessory that maybe comes included with another figure. Hold that thought, though, because, of course, as we have a look at the rest of the Avatar lineup from McFarlane's team, maybe if we do come across an arrow, I'll make use of then the hand that comes included with Jake Sully. You know, I got to say, like, again, I'm really impressed with what I've seen so far with just the one figure alone. The figure is very detailed, very posable, in fact. In fact, I do like the pose I've got him in right now and might just very well carry over that pose when it comes to displaying him on the shelf. We are going to be looking again, as I already mentioned, at the rest of the Avatar lineup. Between vehicles, figures, and smaller scale figures, it's going to be a lot of stuff to cover here on this channel, thanks to, again, the folks over at McFarlane Toys. Are you excited, though, for Avatar, the new Avatar movie? Or do you think it's long past its time when a sequel was ready to be happening? Do you think maybe they took too long to come out with a second follow-up film? Let me know down below in the comment section. And as already mentioned, I'd like to thank the folks over at McFarlane Toys that did provide the sample of the brand new Avatar Jake Sully, and we can have a look at in this video. If you enjoyed this video, by the way, want to hit with a like. If you're loving the content you guys are seeing and certainly do want to stick around for more Avatar reviews, then make sure if you haven't already done so that you're hitting the ever crucial subscribe button down below and moving on over to the bell notification. And as I already mentioned, we are going to be looking at the rest of the Avatar line, so make sure if you are someone that enjoys this line or enjoys certainly seeing the original film, make sure you're keeping your Navi peepers peeled to this channel. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.